Frustration is mounting in Gauteng as thousands of parents are still waiting for school placements for the 2026 academic year. With the new term just weeks away, in fact, just a week away, families say the province's online application system has failed them. Glitches, delays, and poor communication have left many without answers. Some have even waited months, while others have missed deadlines. For more on this, we are speaking to Section 27 attorney Faatima Laher, who joins us now. Faatima, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. I mean, I suppose we can just start from the top here. What does this mean? You have at least 5,000 who aren't placed, and that's just Gauteng, with over 11,000 who applied late as well. And again, as I said, this is just one province. What does this mean for the education year ahead, you think?
Good morning to you and your viewers. Thank you so much for having me. So as per the reports released yesterday, I see that the stats are sitting at around 4,858 learners which remain unplaced. And the late application window has been opened until the end of Jan. So from the 17th of Jan to the 30th of Jan. And like you mentioned, there's at least 11,000 applications and still counting in terms of the late applications. What this means is that the department will have to ensure that these learners are placed before school starts or as soon as possible, as this really puts the strain on learners entering into schools late, ensuring that they require or have the adequate school uniforms and that kind of thing. But there are various challenges with the online system that we've seen over the years, even though 80% of learners have been placed. There are challenges with the online system that we continue to see and face each year, where learners aren't placed accordingly and in time.
Yeah, and I mean, that places such massive pressure on the lives that are affected and impacted here because of that lack of education. And I mean, the department, particularly in Gauteng, for example, was saying 1.5% of applications remain unplaced. And this removes, of course, the late applications thus far. Do you think that this is an underestimation of the seriousness of the situation? Because it can't just be a focus on the numbers, surely, but the lived realities of people.
No, definitely. But I think what we are seeing is there are various challenges with admissions per se, especially in high-pressure districts such as Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg, for example. And this is due to various different issues, but one of the main issues is overcrowding. We have late applications which are stalling the system. There's a huge crisis of overcrowding at the moment. And this is due to various issues, and one of them being the migration of learners between provinces. And we're seeing that happen where a lot more people are moving towards working districts such as Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg. We also have exclusionary and inaccessible admission practices at schools and district levels. And an example of this is where parents are forced to sign admission contracts which bind them to pay the full amount of fees without them being informed that they allowed fee exemptions. And these are the factors that are currently affecting admissions as it stands. But we know that the law and policy is clear, as the Constitution clearly states that everyone is guaranteed the right to basic education and adult basic education. And the right to basic education is an immediately realizable right. It is not subject to the availability of resources of government. And with the recent amendments of the South African Schools Act, SASA, or as people are more aware of, the Bella Act, which has amended the Schools Act. And what this has brought about is it has brought about admission regulations and capacity regulations. And what the admission regulations are is a uniform and binding national framework on how learners are admitted and the process to be followed across provinces, as well as the capacity regulations, which have been gazetted by the minister, and the window has been opened for comment, extended for currently, so
Yeah,
people are more than welcome to make comments on both
sure.
these regulations. But the capacity regulations are the benchmark for classroom sizes as well as pupil and teacher ratios, and which then influence learner placement. And school capacity is defined as is legally determined according to these norms, which affect whether a school can admit learners. And this is something that needs to be considered in terms of placement as well. And I
Fatima,
think this is why people are seeing that their learners are placed quite far
yeah.
from where they live and creating those kind of issue dynamics as
Yeah,
well.
and I mean, at the same time, there's infrastructure constraints, which are part and parcel of what you're mentioning there, too. I mean, as you've made note of, the constitutional right to basic education is a clear element that you've advocated for yourselves as Section 27. But how does this placement crisis then perhaps intersect with that right? Could it be argued that if the state is failing to place students, they're actually failing in their constitutional right here and really failing to uphold the Constitution?
No, definitely. Every learner that's not placed is denied the right to basic education, which is guaranteed by the Constitution. And therefore, as Section 27, we also aim to ensure that parents are assisted during this process and that we are assisting to ensure that learners are placed before the school year starts. As being denied this right is therefore being denied a constitutional obligation.
Yeah, and I mean, the system, when you look at things like the late applications as well that are still in place here, do you think that the system of late applications actually risks pretty much entrenching inequality? Especially where children from disadvantaged families are more likely to be pushed into that sort of under-resourced schools, if you want to call it that.
I think it happens to an extent. So the late application system is currently still open. And I just want to kind of advise parents that are listening at the moment as to how this late application process currently works due to the necessity to urgently place learners. Parents are urged to go onto the department website, which is gdeadmissions.gov.za. And during this period of late applications, which have been running from the 17th of December to the 30th of Jan, schools with only the available amount of space will appear on the online system. And applicants will only be allowed to select at one single school. Once the school is selected, the learner will then be placed at that school, and placements during this time cannot be declined, and no objections or appeals will be permitted. The appeal process for the applications that were made prior to the late application period, that's considered final, and there will be no alternate placement offered after the appeals outcome. And I think this is just due to the overcrowding in the province, which places of which there's a huge issue, but the department also needs to ensure that schools are being built and prioritizes this, because as learners are not placed, they are being denied the right to basic education.
Yeah, just as a final one here, do you think we're on the brink of an education disaster in the country? Just when you consider how we have so many unresolved issues, displacement crisis is still at play, we're asking ourselves about the quality of education. Early childhood development becomes a key factor in all of this as well, if you think about grade ones. Are we on the brink of an education disaster, do you feel?
I wouldn't go so far as saying we're on the brink of an education disaster, but I think there are various issues within the education system which we are aiming to resolve. there are still the issues of pit toilets and pit latrines, infrastructure issues across provinces, specifically in the Eastern Cape as well as Gauteng and Limpopo. There's also issues that the climate disasters are affecting infrastructure in these areas. And these are all things that the department has to take account of going forward. We desperately need new schools and better infrastructure. And I think once that is resolved, we'll be better placed in terms of learner placements and dealing with the overcrowding.
Faatima Laher, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciated Section 27 attorney joining us as we just speak about that school placement. It feels like a crisis, really, with nearly 5,000 children yet to be placed.